Welcome to Learn Robotics and AI. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you an experience of a student who is currently pursuing his bachelor's in mechanical engineering. He is originally from India, and for the sake of confidentiality, I'll refer to him as Dhruv Sharma in this video, which is not his real names, and I've changed some of the credentials just for the sake of confidentiality. So he currently knows C, C++, Python, and he has built some side projects and he is learning more about software engineering and programming, and he's primarily interested in robotics software engineering. But he's confused because he doesn't know where to start, first of all, and what are the different career paths that he should be taking into consideration. He wants to go for a master's in robotics just to get that level of understanding and get some basic foundation in robotics. He has no financial constraints and he has no time related constraints, and he's also open to relocate to other locations if need be. So he wants to start a professional robotics career, but he's really confused. He wants to choose a career path between three different possibilities, whether it is between robotics, engineering, research, and entrepreneurship. So these are the three domains he is really interested in. He has not had enough exposure to really understand whether in engineering and implementation sort of a path is for him, or whether digging deeper into ideas, publishing papers, reading research, implementing new research ideas is for him, or whether really building a startup, building a business, or entrepreneurship route is for him. He is interested in a lot of different domains, and he is not sure whether he should choose one domain or multiple domains within robotics. He wants to decide how to prioritize between preparing for campus placements, which would be mostly software engineering related companies that he would be interested in appearing for, or he should be preparing for a master's in robotics, or he should be preparing for building his portfolio of projects in robotics, or building a foundational understanding in robotics. So he is not really sure about a lot of things, but he wants to have an impact by means of creating something useful, and he's interested in a lot of different domains and systems. He can dedicate 2 hours every single day towards making that transition to robotics and AI. And he is interested particularly in interdisciplinary roles such as systems engineering and entrepreneurship. Now, that could also be due to his lack of exposure to a lot of different fields, and I'll share the plan that I prepared for him in the coming slides. He's currently working on a research project dealing with autonomous fruit harvesting using robotics, and he implements a lot of different things such as SLAM, computer vision, machine learning, path planning, control, etc. So a lot of different components are involved, and he's working in a research team where he is really supported in this project. And he did one machine learning project, and he did a few electronics related projects, although no other specific robotics related project apart from his current experience. So he asks a few questions. Is my current research experience enough for application to master's programs, to top universities such as Carnegie Mellon University or Stanford, etc.? And he says that looking at the profiles of other students, they have so many different robotics projects and internships, and I feel like my experience is not really enough, and I'm not sure if it is good enough to appear for a master's. So how do I determine the difficulty level of a project? So he wants to do projects, of course, to build a portfolio, but how do I choose whether I should really pursue this project or not? Because I'm not sure if I have the right skill set at this stage to gauge the difficulty level of a project accurately. And he asks, are MOOCs useful to learn robotics or not, or should I be focusing on building projects? And he asks me to provide a list of companies, robotics companies in India. What are the tools that are used by the industry, and how do I gauge which tool to focus on, which skills to develop, and things of that nature. So here is the plan that I prepared for him. So first of all is the first step in really building a plan is to really understand what he really wants. What he really wanted was to really understand and decide a career path between engineering, research, and entrepreneurship. And he wanted to choose one or multiple subdomains within robotics because he doesn't know which one would be of interest to him. He wants to decide between preparation for campus job placements or going for a master's in robotics. So these are the primary decisions that he needs to make. And for that, I have this learning framework that he could use, and anyone who is on a similar path can actually follow, which is why I'm preparing this video. Is this learning framework would be very specific to this scenario, and would consist of 4 phases. The first is preparation for campus placements, and I'll talk about why preparation of for campus placements, even for just software engineering roles, might be of benefit. The second phase is building robotics foundation, and the third is exploration of entrepreneurship aspirations, entrepreneurship ventures, other exploration of essentially startup related ideas. And the fourth is then really after you've decided that, hey, this is the path for me, then really making doing more projects, doing more activities, and gaining mastery in the chosen career path. So this is how the yearly plan looks like. So phase one is the first quarter. The first 3 months should be focused on preparing for campus placements, and that would consist of learning programming fundamentals for the first month. The second month could be dedicated to preparing for campus job placements, and the last month could be dedicated to preparing for off campus placements. And after that, you can aim to secure a job in robotics, ML, or general software engineering. So the first phase is essentially just securing a job or understanding what are the different categories of jobs that are there, and really then we would focus on building a robotics foundation in the second phase by creating mini projects in computer vision and machine learning and learning the fundamentals of ROS. And this would really help you determine your subdomain of interest or niche in robotics. And after that, since Dhruv is really interested in systems and entrepreneurship, so I prepared a plan for the third quarter, and in the third quarter, he would essentially be exploring a lot of different startup ideas. He would be generating a list of robotics related startup ideas, and we would be shortlisting the top 3 ideas and really trying to validate the best ideas. And the goal for this would be to really give him a sense of entrepreneurship and really help him decide whether engineering is for him, research is for him, or entrepreneurship suits his personality the best. And you might say that, hey, there's no research related exploration. So to that, I would like to point out that he currently is doing a research project related to autonomous robotics at his university under his professor and uh, PhD student. So he is already getting some research exposure, and he would be getting some engineering exposure by building mini projects. So this would give him a broad sense of exposure to all the 3 career paths: engineering, research, and entrepreneurship. And that would definitely be more than enough for him to really decide which career path is suited for me. And once that decision is made, then the next stage, the next quarter is simple. You just have to build a major project, whether it is really coming up with a business plan for a startup, whether it is coming up with a research project to understand your research direction, or building an engineering related, implementation related software project in the domain of robotics. And finish a major project and build a portfolio of projects, and then you can continue the preparation for off-campus placement. So this 1 year plan is essentially enough to build a strong foundation, really help you understand your career path, really choose your subdomain or niche. And after that, you can continue with your career path and build up more and more projects, apply for jobs, and really become a professional in robotics. So let's look at each of these quarterly goals in a little bit more detail. So the first quarter is preparation for campus placements, learning programming fundamentals. You can do that by learning data structures and algorithms, which is something that every company related to software engineering would be asking you. You should have a strong foundation in this field, and this would, of course, be of benefit even in robotics, even in computer vision and machine learning. Because think about it, these specialized fields, ML, AI, robotics, are essentially built upon software engineering. These would essentially be software engineering roles, but specialized in specific domains. So this foundation is essentially very important regardless of which direction you choose. So that is why I encourage you to dedicate the first month for really preparing for campus placements if you are also in a similar scenario. Or you can take up a crash course and really the foundational understanding gain a foundational understanding of the basics or the fundamentals of C++, or build a mini project using C++. So you can get a foundation of programming, strong foundation of programming, using any of these routes. You can essentially even take Python if you are more inclined towards machine learning. For this scenario, he was more inclined towards robotics and hardware related projects and hardware related career profiles. So that's why C++ would be more suitable. And then the next month would be dedicated to really preparing for campus placement. And notice that I've dedicated 1 month to just one thing, because if you focus on just one thing and really get that thing done, then you can move on to the next stage and really prioritize the other things which are also important. And for this candidate, or for this person, I also noticed that he was a bit confused about a lot of different things, because he wanted to try out a lot of different domains in robotics and AI and a lot of different career paths. So for him, it is particularly important to focus on one specific thing. And preparation of job placements, the companies that would come for recruitment in his college, how would that look like? It would essentially be organizing your project. If you have a portfolio of projects, then really arranging it and making it presentable, and practicing coding tests, because that would essentially be an integral part of every campus placement. Preparing for job interviews, of course, essentially very important. And the last step is now then focusing on robotics, ML, or CV related companies. Essentially, still focusing on placements, but creating a list of robotics, CV, ML companies, and that may or may not be in India, that can be in other countries such as US, Canada, Netherlands, Germany, or any other country in Europe, because it is very much possible to get a job directly. But notice that at this stage, we are just looking at the list of looking at what kind of companies are there, and really making a list of companies that you are really interested in. And then we will have a look at the job descriptions of each of these companies and really list the tools and the skills that are required. And this would be essentially very useful, because then you can create a list of projects that use these tools and skills, so that you will do the projects that the companies would value. So this is the whole mindset behind really creating a list of the companies, looking at job description, listing the tools and skill set, and creating a list of projects. And then you can imagine that if you do the projects that use the kind of tools and the skill sets that companies value, obviously the companies would prioritize your profile, because you have the kind of projects that the companies are actually looking for. So very, very important stage. And an important point here to mention is that you have to prepare both for campus placements and apply to startups or bigger companies, essentially via LinkedIn or job portals. And the concepts that are required for general software development positions, such as data structures and algorithms, are directly transferable to software engineering positions in the robotics or AI domain. So essentially, basic software engineering skills are very important regardless of which specialization you choose. And for this scenario, I also urged Dhruv to really apply to startups that have products in the space of robotics, CV, and ML, because he also has entrepreneurial aspirations. So he wants to see if he gets the exposure to work for a startup, whether it is an engineering role or any other role. Essentially, he would have access to the people who are also involved in the business side of the startup, the sales and marketing, and he can really then understand whether he wants whether working on the entire system of creating a business is for him, or whether really the technical programming or technical hardware related domains are of interest to him. So this is to give him that exposure. And in the second stage, the focus would be on building robotics foundation. Of course, if you can get an opportunity working for a startup or a company after applications, you would get that exposure by means of that. But if you don't, you can build that robotics foundation yourself by creating a mini project first in computer vision, then general machine learning related project, and then also learning ROS fundamentals. You create a list of mini projects in computer vision, and this list would essentially also come from this uh, preparation for off-campus placement step, where we really looked at the list of companies and created a list of projects based on the tools that the companies are using. So you create a list of mini projects in computer vision and you choose a project that can be completed in just 2 to 4 weeks. Not a really big project, not a really huge project. You can just choose a project that can be completed within a few weeks to just give you a taste of what computer vision projects look like, what it feels like to really work in computer vision. And you would do the same then for a machine learning project. You can essentially also take an NLP project if you're interested in that, and then you can take up a ROS crash course or create a mini project using ROS. And on the top of the slide, I've mentioned some of the primary tools for each of these profiles. So ROS is the primary tool that you have to know for robotic software engineering positions, and C++ is very important for computer vision engineer. Of course, OpenCV and TensorFlow or PyTorch, and for machine learning, again, TensorFlow or PyTorch, and of course, scikit-learn, Pandas, and other standard libraries would also be of use, but the primary tool is TensorFlow and PyTorch, and you can focus on that, and you would essentially be able to find the right tools based on the kind of projects that you are building. So Python is useful both for computer vision and machine learning. If you want to focus more on cameras and really hardware side of computer vision, then C++ would also be very, very important. Choose a niche between robotic software engineering, computer vision, or ML or NLP based on the tools and the projects that you would like to work most with. So that is very, very important. And the last the phase 3, the quarter 3, is exploration of entrepreneurial aspirations, generating a list of robotic startup ideas. So you can look at some existing startups in the domains of robotics, CVML. There are a lot of startups um, in the space of robotics that are doing interesting things in healthcare, automotive, and a lot of different domains. So you should be able to easily find that in the list. There's also a video titled "The Top 10 Robotic Startups in Germany" on my YouTube channel. So that would also give you that exposure. You can have a look at that if you are just looking to generate some ideas on what kind of applications or areas robotics really can have an impact in. Generate 20 different startup ideas based on what is interesting to you, and getting ideas from existing startups. You can shortlist the top 10 ideas based on your interest and select the top 3 based on your feasibility. So first focus on the ideas that you find interesting. This is essentially important because if you're building a startup, it is also a very hard thing to do, and you have to make sure that you really follow your interest and not choose a domain that is just popular or seems interesting, um, or is just something that there's a lot of startups in, right? So choose based on your interest, and then select the top three ideas based on feasibility. You have to also think about feasibility, because notice that in this stage, in this just these 3 months, we want to get a sense of what it feels like building a startup from scratch. And so you would then shortlist the top three ideas based on feasibility, and how feasible it is to really do those implement those ideas within a short span of time. So select the top three ideas based on feasibility and define the problem statement clearly of each of these clearly, and then you can measure response from potential customers. Of course, there are multiple ways of really measuring responses from potential customers. You can really create a survey of your potential target audience. So let's say if it is a web platform related startup and you implement machine learning into a web interface, you can really create a landing page and send it to people who might be potential target customers, and really get their feedback, and even talk to them, even hop on to video calls to them, and really get to understand, hey, this is the kind of offering that I am planning to create. Would this be something that is useful to you? And for startup, the main idea that I want to drill in is that for building a startup, the main skills that you would be focusing are not really engineering related skills, although that would be also of significance if you're building a robotic startup. But the main skill would be to identify a problem and really solve it, and really understanding the problems, understanding marketing, sales, and a lot of different things. So this should give you a sense of whether building a startup is for you. As an entrepreneur, you will primarily be involved in creating a business or a system which consists of marketing, sales, and products. So you need to be knowledgeable about a lot of different things. You'll be working on creating business as a system, and systems thinking, management, people skills would be of primary importance. And so this is a completely different route as compared to engineering or research. So the activity is designed to give you a taste of entrepreneurship and decide if you really like it. Maybe it is not for you, and you can then choose between engineering or research. And once you get a taste of it, you can really decide for yourself that, hey, I've tried really coming up with ideas for a startup, really validating this, but I really do not enjoy that process that much, and I want the technical process. So you can focus either on the engineering programming part if you enjoy programming more, or if you say, hey, I want to dig deeper into some of the theoretical concepts, really, because you feel that research is having a bigger impact. So you can choose the career based on these experiences. And the main idea, especially for this person, is that you have to commit to one thing out of these three. You cannot be an entrepreneur, a researcher, and an engineer. If you even try to juggle these three things, you would not really be very good at any of these things. So choose one thing, select a project of your interest, start building the project, and learn the necessary theory along the way. That is the idea, and stick with one niche. So this is how the plan looks like. Now the plan can be split into four sub goals for each week. Now that would depend on the time availability, and every day, if you spend a minimum of 2 hours consistently, then that would be um, actually enough. And the more time you spend, the quicker you can make the transition to robotics or ML or CV. So here's some projects that might be of benefit. Although I haven't focused too much on giving a specific list of projects, because that would essentially come from really defining a list of projects based on the list of companies of interest. So it is really something that is custom built. But just to give an idea, here are some projects: obstacle avoidance in simulated environment using ROS and C++, ROS based robotic arm control. Now these are mini projects to just give you a sense of what it feels like working with ROS and C++ now. Some major projects could be autonomous drone navigation and object recognition, and if you have access to camera system as well, I think that would also be a very interesting project to build. Multi-robot communication and collaboration. So these are just some ideas, and you can pause the video and really have a look at it. But essentially, you can find a list of robotics project easily if you search enough. So that is not really a big deal. You can even ask Chat GPT to come up with a list of 50 or 20 hundreds of different projects, and you can ask it to be more specific, and you can get ideas, and you have to just choose the kind of projects that you're interested in. For computer vision, face detection and recognition using TensorFlow and Python is something that is a mini project that you can do within 2 to 4 weeks. And then image stitching and panorama generation, another interesting project. And then some major projects could be object tracking and semantic segmentation related. So not going into too much details of that. Now let me tell you how I address the queries of Dhruv. Is my current research experience enough for applications to master's programs? Looking at the profiles of other students, they have multiple robotics projects and internships. Of course, if you have multiple projects, if you have a good profile, that is very important. But one important thing that I want to point out, especially to students who just aim to pursue a master's uh, program, is that you're applying to study. You're applying to a study program, and you're not applying for a job profile. So of course the university understands that you are not an expert, and that you don't have 2 to 3 years experience working in robotics and building really amazing robotics projects, because that is why you're going for a master's, because you want to learn those things. So if you just express a genuine strong motivation in your statement of purpose, I think that is more than enough. But of course you have to show that, hey, I have done 2 to 3 different projects, and that is also what this plan or this yearly roadmap offers you. So build projects, but also the project need not be um, professional or with a company. You can do some mini projects. You can approach a professor at a university and do a project with him, and if it is good enough, and if you are really interested in, and if you're genuinely interested in, that should reflect in your motivation letter, and that would essentially be a good enough profile. And build a portfolio of projects, and of course apply to a lot of different universities. And a lot of these things also depend on factors such as luck and randomness. So you have to keep on applying to a lot of different programs. Now, as a beginner, how do you gauge the difficulty level of a project? A project is easy if your skill set matches or exceeds the challenge of the project. So this is something that I have also talked about in some of my previous videos, that if a project is too easy and you're getting bored, maybe you need a slightly difficult project. And if a project is hard and you are just not able to do it, and you're getting overwhelmed and frustrated by it, maybe you can lower the difficulty level of the project and slowly build your skills, so that in the future then you would be able to take up projects of slightly more complexity levels. Balance your skill level and the project challenge by taking up projects of progressively increasing difficulty level. On the top right corner you can see curve. This is the flow diagram that essentially points to balancing your skill level and the challenge that you take to really be in a flow state. And a flow state is something that you might have experienced if you have been programming a bit, or if you have been engaging in some creative sort of an activity where you're really immersed deeply in an activity, that you lose sense of time. So if your skill level and your challenge that you take are in alignment, you would experience enjoyment in doing that task. Otherwise you'll feel either stressed or bored. Okay, so are MOOCs useful to learn robotics? Is also pretty common or frequently asked questions. And yes, it is useful. Of course there's a lot of information and knowledge in every single MOOC, but only if you use it effectively to get familiar with the fundamentals of a topic. And it is in no way sufficient. It is useful, but it is not enough. It is just maybe one step of your learning journey. It is, if you take up a MOOC and if you get familiarized with, let's say, gradient descent, backpropagation, and some of the fundamentals of machine learning, yes, it is useful, but you still cannot rely solely on the MOOCs, and you shouldn't passively consume it, because if you are just taking in the information and not really building a project using those theoretical foundations, then you're not really learning. You would probably forget it, and that is not of much significance to an employer. An employer cares about practical experience, and you can only gain that by building a project. So without building an actual project, your learning is incomplete. And ideally learn the basics of a field by taking up MOOCs, and then build up multiple projects using the theory, using the skills that you learn from these MOOCs. Can you share a list of companies in India? This is also something that I've talked about. Inventor, Robotics, Grey Orange, Cognizant, TCS, Wipro also offer AI related solutions. These are also companies that you can consider. Then there's HBots, Robotics, Asimov Robotics, Sastra Robotics, Swayat Robots. There's also this podcast with the founder of Swayat Robots, Sanjeev Sharma, which I thought was very interesting, especially for me. And you can also have a look at that on my YouTube channel if you're interested in autonomous driving and reinforcement learning. So that is something that would be cool. Essentially, I don't really emphasize on. I don't really find the value in preparing a comprehensive list of companies in any country or whatever, because this is something you can easily look up online. So you can look up on LinkedIn. You could spend some, even just 1 to 2 hours, and you'd be able to find out that list. So these kinds of questions are something that you can even answer yourself. So which tools are used by the industry? Again, look at the job profiles of companies. That is the best way to really find out the kind of skills and tools that are used by the industry in general. TensorFlow, PyTorch, scikit-learn, Pandas are used for machine learning. OpenCV is used for computer vision. ROS2 is used for robotic software engineering. Focus on C++ for hardware, and Python for machine learning. Gazebo is used for simulation platforms for robotics positions. PyBullet, Mujoko, and IsaacSim are used in research. So here is, before learning a tool, make sure to look at the job profiles of companies. So this is one random job profile that I took from Boston Dynamics AI Institute. Of course, this is maybe a senior position, but I just wanted to highlight that you can find a list of tools and frameworks easily on the job profile section, right? Scikit-learn, Carrot, MLR, MLlib, Spark ML, NumPy, SciPy, Pandas, TensorFlow, PyTorch. So they require both of these, MXNet, and so on. So they require a lot of different skills. You see, an experience with deep learning techniques in NLP and computer vision, an experience with C++ or Python, and a bachelor's or a master's degree in an engineering field, and experience with Git issue tracking, CI/CD, and modern software engineering practices, understanding of machine learning algorithms such as linear and logistic regression. So this is very specific. These are the kind of algorithms that they're working on, and this is the kind of experience that they're looking for. And now you can see how powerful this is. Like, just looking at this job description, you can say, hey, I can build 2 to 3 projects that require using KNNs that the institute might be really interested in. And the kind of projects that Boston Dynamics AI Institute is working on. You can have a look at the products and services that they're offering, and it is really very, very simple to uh, get a job even as a self-taught robotics or AI engineers, because you see, these are the skills that they require. You can build a portfolio of projects that use these skills, that are similar to the kind of projects that are ongoing in the company, and obviously if you have a strong profile, there is no reason why lack of a degree would be a problem. So, are there some bonus questions? Are there well-paid robotics or AI jobs in India? There are emerging opportunities in India in the domains of AI and robotics. Look for startups in Bangalore, New Delhi, and Pune, other metropolitan cities. If possible, try to apply for jobs in other countries such as Canada, US, and Germany, where there's more demand for robotics or AI engineers. You can apply directly to these countries as well these days. Okay, so list of companies in Germany, not going to read them. You can have a look at the video titled Top 10 Robotics Startups in Germany. Actually, a more detailed list is also on the website learnroboticsandai.com. So if you're really looking for a list of companies in Germany, that would be very useful. Here are some more companies that you can look at. Pause the video and look at it if you really need to. Job opportunities in Germany, I've talked about this, that in general, in machine learning and computer vision startups are prominent in Berlin, Aachen, Cologne, Bremen, Karlsruhe, and the yearly and monthly salaries that you would expect are of this range. In general, robotic startups are more prominent in Munich and Stuttgart in the south of Germany. So, how do I apply for a startup? Make a list of companies, get the skills, create projects. Here are some ROS resources that you can refer to. There's a ROS wiki on the ROS wiki official website, of course, ROS construct tutorials, ETH Zurich ROS course. There's a YouTube playlist that is very interesting, and then ROS books by Lyndon Joseph. I recently also created a very detailed, comprehensive list of ROS 2 resources, and I've also compared ROS 1 and ROS 2 and which one should you start with. So you can have a look at that, and that is definitely going to be very useful to you. So that is it. And I hope this video was helpful. Let me know in the comments what kind of videos do you find really interesting. So I've been creating these detailed guides and detailed roadmaps in the last few weeks and even months, and those have been getting more traction than the technical videos that I have been creating. So for example, I created this video called OpenCV Crash Course, which required a tremendous amount of effort. Um, and I think the more the videos where I've created roadmaps have been more valuable. But let me know what kind of videos do you find more interesting. I can also create breakdowns of projects. I can create, hey, how do you start your first machine learning project and really build it from scratch, if that is something that is beneficial to you. But really, let me know in the comments what kind of content do you find the most valuable. I can also share with you a list of projects, a list of resources. So the possibilities are endless. Let me know what is the most useful to you.